All right, strap in, everybody. Today we are taking a deep dive into, well, parking lot poetry.
Parking lot poetry.
You heard right.
Sounds intriguing.
It is, trust me.
Yeah.
So imagine this. A regular, nothing special Volkswagen Golf gets left in a short-term parking spot.
Okay.
It sits there
Uh,
for a whole year, and nobody does anything about it.
what?
Yeah. The parking fees rack up to like 200,000 euros.
200,000 for a Volkswagen Golf. That's crazy.
Right. The car's only worth like 4,500 euros. You'd think somebody would have noticed.
You'd think so, yeah.
But no.
Yeah.
And the owner, nowhere to be found.
Wow. So, what does poetry have to do with this?
That's where this deep dive gets interesting. The source we're looking at today uses this whole abandoned car thing as like a metaphor.
A metaphor for what?
Untapped creativity, wasted potential. They compare the car to all sorts of things, a beached whale, a corpse, even a one-night stand that just won't go away.
Okay, I see where the parking lot poetry thing comes in now. But a one-night stand? That's a bit much, don't you think?
Well, the author's not exactly known for subtlety. They really lay it on thick, Try to make you feel how stuck this car is and how stuck we can be in our own lives.
So it's like the car represents those creative projects we all have that never seem to get off the ground.
Exactly. And the longer they sit there, the more those metaphorical parking fees pile up, like wasted time, missed opportunities.
I see. And they really drive that point home with the whole ticking clock thing, right? The fees just keep going up and up, like a reminder that time is slipping away.
Yep. And they're not afraid to give you a little kick in the pants about it either. Their tone is pretty direct, like a drill sergeant yelling at you to get moving.
So what's the solution? How do we avoid becoming that abandoned golf in the parking lot of life?
According to the author, it all starts with a killer first line.
A first line for a poem.
For anything, really. They compare it to the ignition of a car. You need that initial spark to get the engine going.
Interesting analogy, but what makes a good first line, in their opinion?
They give some pretty specific advice, actually. And some hilarious examples of what not to do, like, I want to tell you something today.
Ouch. Yeah, not exactly grabbing the reader's attention with that one.
Right. It's like starting a car with a dead battery. But then they offer some alternatives that are actually pretty cool. Like, yesterday I had a conversation about love with a cockroach.
Now that's a line that makes you want to know more.
Exactly. It's intriguing, unexpected. It hooks you right from the start.
So the author's saying that the first line is make or break. You either capture your audience's attention right away, or you risk losing them completely.
Pretty much. It's like being stuck in that parking lot, watching the meter climb higher and higher while everyone else is out there driving their creative vehicles.
And I guess this applies to more than just poetry, right? Any creative project, really. You need that initial spark to draw people in.
Absolutely. Whether you're writing a novel, composing a song, or even starting a business, that first impression can make all the difference.
Makes you think about all those passion projects we've got tucked away somewhere, gathering dust.
Doesn't it? Maybe it's time to dust them off and see if we can get those engines started.
Maybe it is.
And speaking of getting things started, the author has a suggestion for how to jumpstart your poetic journey. It's called Poetry Master.
Poetry Master. Sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's like this program they've developed, supposedly packed with all sorts of tips and tricks for writing poetry.
So like a poetry boot camp?
Kind of. They claim it can help you unlock your inner Shakespeare, or at least your inner rhyming enthusiast.
I'm a little skeptical, but I'm always open to learning new things. What exactly does Poetry Master cover?
Well, they mention things like crafting powerful first lines, developing metaphors, and even mastering stage presence for performance.
Stage presence.
Yeah, apparently they believe that poetry is meant to be heard, not just read. So they focus on performance techniques as well.
Wow, that's pretty comprehensive. I wonder if it lives up to the hype, though.
Well, that's what we're here to find out. As we dig deeper into the source material, we'll see what Poetry Master is all about, and whether it really can help you become a poetic powerhouse.
Sounds like a plan.
But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's take a step back and think about the bigger picture here. What do you think, does this whole abandoned car thing really work as a metaphor for untapped creativity?
I think it's pretty clever, actually. It's relatable. We all have those moments where we feel stuck, like our creative engines have stalled.
And the mounting parking fees? That's a great way to visualize wasted time and missed opportunities.
It is. It makes you realize that procrastination can have real consequences, even if they're not always financial.
Exactly. And the author's point is, we don't have to stay stuck. We can choose to get back behind the wheel and start driving towards our creative goals.
But it takes effort. And maybe a little guidance along the way, which is where Poetry Master supposedly comes in.
Right. But even if you don't sign up for a program, the message is clear. Don't let your creative potential languish. Don't become that forgotten golf in the parking lot of life.
Wise words. So, what do you say? Shall we dive deeper into this Poetry Master thing and see what it's all about?
Let's do it. But first, we need to take a quick break and refuel our own creative engines with a little caffeine.
Sounds good to me. So this Poetry Master thing, it sounds like it's more than just a book, like a whole system.
Yeah, kind of. They frame it as this, like, step-by-step guide to becoming a poet.
Huh, interesting.
And one thing that stuck out to me was they talk a lot about stage presence.
Stage presence.
Yeah, for performing your poems. It's not just about writing them down. It's about connecting with an audience.
I never really thought of it that way.
Right. But it makes sense. Poetry's meant to be heard. I mean, think about the great poets throughout history.
Yeah, they were performers too.
Exactly. So Poetry Master has this whole section on, like, using your voice, your body language, all that.
Huh. I'd be curious to see what kind of advice they give. Because honestly, the thought of reading my poems out loud, terrifying.
I know, right? I get stage fright just thinking about it.
But I guess that's part of what Poetry Master is trying to help with, building that confidence.
Yeah, they even say it can help you, like, command the stage.
Command the stage. That's a pretty bold claim.
It is. But hey, maybe they're onto something. I mean, everyone gets nervous, but some people just seem to, like, own the stage.
True. Like they have this presence, this charisma that just draws you in.
Right. And maybe that's something you can learn. Maybe it's not all just, like, natural talent.
Maybe not. So do they explain how to do that? Like what the actual steps are?
They hint at it, but they don't go into a ton of detail. It's more like they give you the overview, and then you have to, like, sign up for the program to get the specifics.
The classic marketing strategy.
Right. But still, it's an interesting idea that even if you're shy, even if you hate public speaking, you can learn to be a confident performer.
I guess it makes sense. Like with any skill, the more you practice, the better you get.
Exactly. And Poetry Master seems to be all about, like, providing that structure, that roadmap to help you improve.
It's like they're saying, hey, you don't have to figure this out on your own. We've got a system for you.
Right. Which, let's face it, can be pretty appealing, especially if you're just starting out and feeling a bit lost.
Definitely. Having a guide, a mentor, can make all the difference.
So do you think Poetry Master could be that guide for our listeners?
Possibly. I mean, it's hard to say for sure without knowing more about the program itself.
True. But even if you don't go the Poetry Master route, the message here is pretty clear, right? Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Don't let those fears hold you back.
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to experiment. Try new things. Find what works for you.
Yeah, because ultimately creativity is about, like, expressing yourself, finding your own unique voice.
And sometimes that means going off-road,
Yeah,
venturing beyond the beaten path.
exactly. Taking risks, trying things that might not work out.
But hey, even if you fail, you learn something along the way.
So, what do you say, listeners? Ready to ditch the parking lot and hit the open road?
The world's waiting to hear what you have to say.
So if you're ready to hit the road, so to speak,
Yeah.
what kind of creative vehicle are we talking about here? If your creative spirit was a car, what would it be?
Oh, that's a good one. I think for me it'd be something a little offbeat, maybe like a brightly colored VW bus. The kind you see at music festivals.
The VW bus. That's awesome. Yeah, you'd be cruising along, picking up all sorts of interesting, creative hitchhikers along the way.
Exactly. Sharing stories, collaborating, making some beautiful noise together.
Love it. What about you, dear listener? What's your creative ride? A sleek sports car? A rugged Jeep? Maybe a hot air balloon? Let us know. We're really curious.
Yeah, tell us about it.
And speaking of journeys, if you're feeling inspired to maybe jumpstart your own poetic adventure, we highly recommend checking out the book Poetry Master Poetry Power in 7 Days.
Yeah, it sounds like a great resource, especially if you're feeling stuck in that parking lot.
Right. Time to get those creative engines revving. So that about wraps up our deep dive into parking lot poetry.
From abandoned cars to killer first lines, we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have. And the big takeaway: don't let your creative potential go to waste. Don't be that forgotten golf.
No metaphorical parking tickets for us.
Exactly. So keep those creative sparks flying. And until next time, stay curious.
And stay creative, Stefan.